I just finished like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, and I just sort of feel a need to talk out to the void about the game. I'll discuss several parts of the game in the different segments of the video, so I'll try to make it very clear when I talk about the story. I'll save that for the end, so that if you're only interested in my thoughts on the gameplay mechanics and minigames and stuff like that, you can watch until the story part and not get spoiled on the game. So this is of course a action brawler game and not a turn-based game this time. It has two combat styles which are really satisfying, both of them. You have the Mad Dog and the Sea Dog styles. I thought that was a really funny way to call them. It makes sense, you know, because he already was the Mad Dog, but then you call it the Sea Dog style and he's a pirate. That's pretty hilarious, not gonna lie. But even though the combat styles feel very satisfying to actually play, I have to say, after a while, once I got, you know, a lot of attack boosting rings, which are basically your gear slots, I didn't really have to think a lot and I kinda just murder enemies extremely quickly, which, you know, I don't really play Yakuza for the difficulty, so I don't really mind, but I think maybe the enemies could have been a slightly bit tougher. Even on the highest difficulty, the enemies just kinda instantly die, you know. You get a really powerful heat action with the hook on the Sea Dog style, which can almost one-shot, you know, the final boss even. You can actually do it because you get, there's like a damage cap when they enter like a cutscene. A lot of boss fights, you know, or they have to do their animation where they power up, you know. But other than that, it was kind of unbalanced. I don't think it's something that I would have used if it was there, but I think it would have been good if they had a legend mode in the game for people who want, you know, a bit more difficult combat. I feel like it's a shame to not put it in, like just increase the enemy stats, like, you know, it's such easy content, like why not, you know? But I wouldn't have used it anyway, but I think they should have had it in the game. One of the main new selling points in the game is the new ship combat that they added, and I think that it's okay. I thought it was too difficult on professional. I don't know if that's a skill issue, but I had to lower the difficulty because I didn't think that the ship combat was fun enough to the point where, like, if I have to keep repeatedly trying fights, I don't really want to do that because I don't think the ship combat was, you know, as fun as the cool new combat styles they added. There was just such a large difference in how difficult the ship combat was and how difficult the, you know, brawl combat was, where when you're in the brawl combat you're kind of like killing enemies in 3 seconds, and in the ship combat it can take like 3 minutes to get down the ship sometimes. But overall I thought it was a fun distraction and a fun little gimmick for a new side game, right? It was okay to explore the oceans and stuff, but I really felt like it looked very samey everywhere, and, you know, just the very rocky coasts everywhere, and you just go to the points on the map that you can see, right? They had some optional areas that looked a bit more different, but like it just felt like they were reskinned and they actually looked the same, if that makes sense. It's the same geometry. The game is mostly using, you know, reused assets from Infinite Wealth, of course, because you go to Hawaii again, but you do have the two new smaller areas, right, with, you know, Madlantis and Rich Island, which you start off on. I thought they were okay to explore, but it doesn't really compare at all to, you know, a main city. It's just a small place with a few side activities that you can do. So since a lot of it was reused from Infinite Wealth, also a lot of the mini games were also just reused from Infinite Wealth. Of course, this franchise is not unknown to like reuse assets, of course. I just see it as fun bonus, you know, that you can play these things again. That's quite fun. They of course brought back Dragon Kart this time. I wasn't huge on it, but, you know, it was okay to race through the tracks and do the minigame. It was a fun little distraction. The biggest new minigame is of course the Pirate Coliseum. If you can even call it a minigame, it's more of a... well, it's a coliseum, you fight a lot of enemies and there's a lot of fights. At the time of recording this I actually haven't completed all of them because I just haven't gotten around to it, but I will 100% the game. And I think that the Pirate Coliseum is okay. As I mentioned, I think that there's a big disparity between how hard the ship battles are and like the in-person fight battles, where the ship battles take way longer usually, and you just kind of instantly murder everyone by holding Y as a sea dog in the brawler style. If you want like a big combat focus, I don't think you're gonna get it here. Only the ship combat is remotely difficult, and everything else is honestly quite simple to complete. So if you're looking for, hard fights, not in this game unfortunately. You would have to sort of handicap yourself by not using items like the attack boosting rings and, the stat rings. I guess you could make like sort of a challenge run, but then you kind of have to do challenges to make the game hard, which feels kind of cheap, IMO. The game runs really well. The Yakuza games are quite well optimized. I could play it on my Steam Deck and get, 60 FPS with no issues. I think it's 60 at least. It looks smooth at least. That's what matters. In combat it can drop though, but usually only in like the big battles on the ships where you're fighting tons of enemies. Okay, so from this point on I will be discussing the story. So if you do not want to know the story, then you could probably hop off now. But a tldr is that I really enjoyed the story and I would recommend you to play this game for the story. So the story in this game is of course about Majima waking up with amnesia on an island, and then he starts searching for the lost treasure of the Ishparansha. There is also a rumor that this treasure would contain some sort of elixir of life that could cure any ailment. In the ending it's revealed that Majima only went to Hawaii to search for the elixir of life so that he could cure Kiryu, which I thought was so heartbreaking to learn. In my opinion the story starts off pretty cool, but the middle segments of this game are very slow and also filled out with, side content that integrates into the main story. So it gets a bit of a pacing issue because they have to incorporate all of the side stuff so you can unlock the side stuff into the story. This is the biggest problem in chapter 2, I would say, where chapter 2 was by far the longest chapter for most people that I've seen online as well. But the final chapter in this game is absolute peak Yakuza IMO. It was so emotional and sad. I love pretty much all the new characters. I don't think there's anyone I dislike. If anything, maybe some characters were not active enough in the story. A good example of characters that weren't active enough would be the Queen and Naomi IMO. They just sorta kinda turn up in the ending and then they don't do anything for the rest of the game. I thought Raymond Law was a pretty cool villain. I really underestimated him. I think that was the intention, because the Queen seemed more powerful in her grip of Madlantis, right? But we all really underestimated Raymond Law in the story, and I thought that was really cool in the end. Something that's really crazy is the whole ending segment with the credits and stuff, where we get a lot of revelations. The first of these would be the true nature of this supposed elixir of life, which apparently, actually kinda existed. It didn't really grant you immortality, but it seems to be able to allow you to live for a really long time. Rodrigo's father seems to be supposedly above 200 years old, and I think it's kind of crazy that they're introducing supernatural elements like this in Yakuza. I can't remember any other elements like this, but I think it's really fascinating IMO, and I'm very curious to see where they take it from here. I mean, of course you have some kinda supernatural elements, but I always interpret some of them to not actually happening, and it's more of a visual representation, like, how Majima can summon shadow clones of himself, or how he can summon sharks with his violin. I'm kinda not thinking that's actually happening, it's more just like a game thing. The best part of the game, though, by far, was the ending cutscene, the post-credit cutscene. I think that's what it was, where you can see Majima and Sajima finally driving to visit Kiryu in the hospital. And I thought that the conversation that Sajima and Majima had outside the hospital was so incredibly beautiful and inspiring. I thought it was so beautiful how Majima sees, that bad things happen to people sometimes. It also means that good things happen to people sometimes, and that's the good thing about life. I thought that was a really fun way to look at things. I'm super curious to see what the future of the Like a Dragon franchise has to offer. We of course know that they're working on the Project Century game, but I don't think that that will be a part of the Yakuza franchise, at least. I'm pretty sure it won't, I'm not sure, but I hope we won't have to wait too long for the next one. Although I'm of course also picking up Project Century on day one realistically. But yeah, we saw Ichiban in the ending again, so I think it's very safe to assume that he will return as the playable protagonist in the next game. Maybe Majima will join him, who knows? I would be down for that. Anyway, I think that's most of the thoughts I can ramble up right now. Leave some comments in the comment section below what you thought about the game. I'm very curious. There's not a lot of discussion available online right now since the game is so new. So I would really like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you have a lovely day. See ya!